The patient man begins his journey with an open heart, believing that love is measured by how much he can endure. He starts by giving the benefit of the doubt, assuming the best, even when met with the worst. His kindness is not weakness, is deliberate, a choice to rise above pettiness, to listen instead of argue, to forgive rather than retaliate. He tells himself that love is built on tolerance, that flexibility is the mark of a good man. And so he absorbs the small slights, the sharp words disguised as jokes, the dismissive tone, the silent treatments that stretch for days. He chalks it up to her having a bad day, to stress, to something he must have done wrong, but tolerance. When unreciprocated becomes a slow poison. What begins as occasional disrespect soon hardens into habit. She pushes, not out of malice, but because his patience feels like an open invitation. His calmness is mistaken for passivity. His willingness to forgive is read as permission to repeat the offense. The sarcasm grows sharper, the emotional withdrawals longer, the entitlement more pronounced. He watches as his efforts, the planned dates, the thoughtful gestures. The nights spent holding her through storms are met with indifference or worse expectation. He starts to question himself. Asterisk, maybe if I try harder? Maybe if I explain it differently. Asterisk, yet the more he gives, the more she takes. His silence, meant to keep peace, becomes a vacuum she fills with chaos. His generosity, once appreciated, is now assumed. His emotional labor listening to her worries, soothing her insecurities, goes unreturned. He waits for reciprocity, for recognition, for even a fraction of the patience he extends. But instead, he is met with moving goalposts. What was once, "You're so understanding," becomes, "Why don't you ever fight for me?" His consistency, once a comfort, is now called monotony. Stability is labeled as boredom. The cruelest twist. He doesn't even realize the shift happening within him. The man who once believed in gentle love now questions whether gentleness is enough. The man who avoided conflict now wonders if conflict is the only language she understands. He doesn't yet see that his patience is being exploited, only that it's no longer working. And so he digs deeper, tries harder, stretches himself. Thinner, but the cracks are forming. The illusion of peaceful love is fading, and beneath the surface, something quiet and dangerous begins to stir. The first whispers of resentment, the first cold realization that love shouldn't require this much suffering. She doesn't set out to break him, at least not consciously. To her, it's just testing the waters, pushing boundaries to see how far they bend. A sharp comment here, a withheld affection there, a dismissive laugh at his expense in front of friends. Each time she watches for his reaction, not realizing. She's not testing his love, she's eroding it. His calm demeanor becomes a puzzle she can't resist solving. If he doesn't react to sarcasm, maybe he'll flinch at silence. If he brushes off her coldness, perhaps he'll snap when she compares him to other men. She tells herself it's just passion, that all relationships have tension. But the truth is simpler. She's addicted to the thrill of emotional friction. And his patience is the fuel. He notices the shift, but misreads it. He assumes she's unhappy, that if he listens more, gives more, swallows his pride just once more, she'll soften. So he endures the backhanded compliments, the sudden mood swings, the way she shuts him out for days only to return as if nothing happened. He rationalizes its stress, past trauma, his own shortcomings. He doesn't see the game for what it is, a subconscious dance where she leads with chaos and expects him to follow with endless stability. The more he tolerates, the more she interprets his grace as permission. His silence isn't peacekeeping. To her, it's submission. Meanwhile, his unspoken frustrations pile up. He starts editing himself, biting back truths to avoid another argument. He laughs at jokes that sting, agrees to demands that drain him, pretends not to notice when her eyes linger a little too long on other men. With each compromise, he loses a piece of himself, but he clings to the hope that she eventually see his sacrifices and change. But she doesn't. Instead, she grows bolder, mistaking his restraint for weakness. The tests escalate flirtatious. Comments to strangers, just to see if he cares. last-minute cancellations of plans they'd made for weeks, tears when he finally voices hurt. She frames it as passion, as keeping the spark alive. But the spark she's chasing is the one that comes from watching him bend. What she doesn't realize is that every man has a ledger, and while he may not speak of it, he's keeping score. Not of wins and losses, but of wounds and concessions. The day he stops trying won't come with drama idle, come with a quiet click in his mind, the sound of a door locking inside him. By then, she'd have proven everything except what she actually wanted to know, that he'd stay no matter
what?
And by the time she understands the cost, the man she once knew will already be gone. The shift happens so gradually that neither of them notices at first. His laughter becomes rarer, his responses shorter. The warmth in his touch cools to something polite and perfunctory. He stops initiating conversations, stops asking how her day was, stops fighting for the relationship with the same desperate hope as before. It's not revenge, it's exhaustion. The weight of 1,000 unacknowledged slights has settled into his bones, and one day he simply wakes up tired of explaining himself, tired of begging for basic decency, tired of loving someone who treats his love like an obligation rather than a gift. She mistakes his withdrawal for complacency. At first she barely registers the change after all. He's still there, still performing the motions. But then she realizes he's present but not there. His eyes don't light up when she walks in the room anymore. He no longer scrambles to fix problems she creates. The emotional labor he once poured into her, the reassurance, the validation, the endless emotional first aid has dried up. Suddenly she's the one trying to provoke a reaction, but the old tactics don't work. Sarcasm bounces off him. Silent treatments go unbroken. Tears that once guilted him into apology now meet quiet detachment. Panic sets in.
Where's the
Man who used to fight for her, what she doesn't understand is that he did fight for years in silence. He fought the urge to walk away every time she dismissed his feelings. He fought the resentment building in his chest every time she twisted his kindness into weakness. He fought to believe she'd change long after the evidence said otherwise. But there's only so much fighting a man can do before he realizes he's the only one on the battlefield. The anger she feared was never the real threat. The real threat was his indifference. Now, when she picks a fight, he doesn't engage. When she withholds affection, he doesn't chase. He's not cruel, not vengeful. It's just empty. The love he once had has hardened into something brittle, preserved but no longer alive. She'd call him cold, accuse him of changing, but the truth is simpler. He stopped lying to himself. Fairy tale is over. No amount of hysterics, promises, or last-ditch efforts can reignite what she spent years extinguishing. The tragedy isn't that he left. It's that she didn't notice. He was already gone. The moment of reckoning arrives, not with fireworks, but with quiet finality. There's no dramatic breakup scene, no slam doors, just a weary man who finally stops reaching for someone determined to remain, just out of grasp. She expects tears. Shouting, the explosive confrontation she's been subconsciously preparing for. Instead, she's met with something far more terrifying, his indifference. His voice stays level when she tries to pick a fight. His schedule no longer bends to accommodate her whims. He stops rearranging his life to soothe her instability. And the silence that follows is deafening. For the first time, she feels the weight of her own actions. The games that once made her feel powerful now leave her hollow. The emotional leverage she held over him dissolves because he simply stops caring about the outcome. She frantically scrolls through their messages, realizing with dawning horror how many of his pleas for understanding she dismissed, how often she mistook his patience for infinite resilience. The dynamic has shifted irreversibly, not because he's punishing her, because he's finally free. She tries every tactic that once worked. Anger, guilt, tearful promises of change. But the man who once agonized over her every mood now watches her performative distress with detached curiosity, like a scientist observing a failed experiment. The realization hits her like a physical blow. He's been emotionally checked out for months. Grieving the relationship while she was still playing games? The breakup, when it comes, is almost a formality. In the aftermath, she tells friends he changed overnight. She omits the years of ignored warnings, the way she weaponized his love against him. Meanwhile, he rediscovers parts of himself. Long suppressed the hobbies she mocked, the friends she isolated him from, the peace she convinced him was boredom. His transformation isn't the spiteful rebellion she anticipated, but a natural return to the man he was before her, chaos convinced. Him love had to hurt. The final cruelty? She'll remember him as the villain of her story, the one who gave up. He'll remember her as the lesson that taught him no amount of love can fix someone who enjoys breaking you. Both will be right. Both will be wrong. And neither will. Ever look at love the same way again? The path forward isn't about bitterness or blame. It's about reclaiming the fundamental truth that love should never demand your destruction. The patient man emerges from the wreckage not with cynicism, but with hard-won clarity. He understands now that boundaries aren't walls to keep love out, but foundations to keep it healthy. His patience was never the problem. The problem was giving it to someone who saw it as an opportunity rather than a gift. There's a quiet strength in his recovery. He doesn't swear off love or declare all women manipulative. Instead, he learns to recognize the difference between someone who values peace and someone who merely craves the comfort of his stability while sabotaging it. He discovers that real love doesn't require him to shrink himself, it amplifies him. The right partner won't mistake his calm for weakness or his kindness for naivety. She matches emotional labor, cherishes consistency, and protect the peace they build together. To the man who's endured this transformation, your greatest act of love wasn't staying, it was walking away. Not every woman is a lesson in pain. Some will remind you why you believed in love to begin with. The key is refusing to repeat the same patterns, to mistake suffering for devotion. True strength lies in knowing when to protect your heart without closing it entirely. The journey ends where it began, with hope. But this time, it's hope tempered by wisdom. You'll love again, but differently. Not with the desperate optimism of a man trying to prove his worth, but with the quiet confidence of one who knows his value. And when you find someone who treats your patience as the treasure it is, you'll realize the storm wasn't the price of love. It was just the road that led you home.